What's up, Richmond AFC fans? I am Matt, and welcome to the first episode of Biscuits Believing, our Ted Lasso podcast over here at WAT Reel Entertainment. It's first episode. It's going to be live specifically for that reason because today/last night was premiere day for Ted Lasso season 3, and honestly, Ted Lasso is one of my favorite shows. It's so heartwarming. It is so gracious. And I don't know if any of you watching this actually saw my reaction to that first teaser trailer we got for season 3, but you can go check that out right here on this channel. But overall, I am excited to break down season 3, episode 1 with you guys. What's up, Jeff? Nice to see you in the chat. I like the part with the lasso. Yeah, I think we all like the part with the lasso. And surprisingly, a smaller lasso has a lot of wisdom in this first episode, even though he's barely seen on screen. I just want to real quick say, whoever watches this show, whether it be this episode live or in the rebroadcast or just while it's living on YouTube or any future episodes, thank you for tuning in. It means a lot. We're doing a lot over here to just switch things up. And also, be sure to check out our Last of Us season finale review later tonight. I know it's 3 days past the fact, but there was the Oscars, and then we did the Oscar talk on Monday, and then I had to see John Wick Chapter 4 yesterday. Review to come on that soon. And then it just worked out that today was going to be Biscuits Believing earlier in the day, and the Last of Us talk later in the day. So I'm excited, but without further ado, let's really start to break down Ted Lasso season 3, because we essentially pick up somewhere shortly after we left off last season, where Nate is now the head coach or the manager at West Ham United, now owned by Rupert, Hannah Waddingham's character's ex-husband. And we are going to have an interesting journey of following Nate now and kind of see the parallels between him and Ted, his continued fall, which was a major part of season 2, into where he is now. And then we're going to kind of, it looks like, see Ted and take a nice journey, or I shouldn't say nice, an interesting internal journey with him, because when we open up this episode, he is at the airport with his son, Henry, and, well, he's sending him home to the U.S., and you can just see that Ted's depression is really kicking in. He doesn't want to send his son home. They only had 6 weeks together, he said. So he's like, yeah, 6 weeks just flew on by. And you kind of see right after he drops Henry off and he talks to our sports doctor from season 2 about everything and how he's feeling now that Henry's gone back, and getting an idea of what his life was like. You see that he was playing Legos with them, and you have the entire AFC Richmond crew, got the pitch and everything, and he's just kind of, it feels like going through the motions, which is strangely odd because you're not used to that with Ted. So from there, we move on to actually spending some time with Nate, seeing him arrive at West Ham, and just, to be frank, being that same prick he was towards the end of season 2. He's got that attitude, and he's carrying it with him there. He's got this whole new mindset, it seems like. And now we kind of, as fans, have to adjust to that, or so it seems. But we'll get back to that in a second. One of the big things going on in this episode is the fact that the predictions for the Premier League are out, and AFC Richmond is predicted to finish dead last in the Premier League. It's causing quite a stir amongst the players, amongst Rebecca, and even the coaches, because you have Ted talk to Beard and Roy Kent about the fact that, hey, we're predicted to finish last. Our guys kind of aren't taking it well. You can see there's little small arguments going on in the locker room. Jamie Tart, being himself, he's like, guys, we'll be fine because we have ourselves and me. And then that those issues continue on the pitch or when they're at training, because you have just funny little one-liners, like the fact that Danny Rojas is like, I can't believe that little bird said all those mean things. And yeah, one of his teammates have to explain, no, it's people saying things and it's on the bird. And he's like, what? It's the fish out of water element of Danny is always one of the most endearing things about this show. But it brings out the fact that Ted needs to just figure out a way to bring his team together and push out all this noise. Now, we're going to cut back to some time with Nate, where he is now meeting with Rupert, and just ultimately he's going, he's trying to learn the lifestyle of a Premier League manager. To the fact that, hey, set up a car, or he's got his little rinky-dink green car still, and he's got that parked in the Premier lot, which is like the big important players employee lot. And Rupert gets towed because, lo and behold, you wouldn't expect a Premier League manager to drive that kind of little dinky car. And then ultimately you start to see that there's still some of that Nate that us as fans know and love. Just chilling out there, or not chilling out there, but as a part of Nate still. And that's the important thing, because that leaves you a little bit of hope that there might be some redemption there for Nate, but you never know. So from there, we cut back to our crew at Richmond. Or, excuse me, we don't. Rupert continues to talk about Nate. Nate jokes about how he can't believe Richmond let him go, and that the fact that they're predicted to finish last in the league. And Nate says, well, they're only predicted to finish 20th because there's no 21st. And Rupert's loving that attitude. He's like, I hope you bring one-liners like that to the presser, because you have a presser later today, and I think that'll be, you bring that kind of attitude, it's going to be more fun, and we can bury them more. An element I have been forgetting is to bring up a little bit more Rebecca. Rebecca is clearly letting Rupert live in her head rent-free with him owning West Ham United. It's kind of weird, because we just spent this entire last season of her growing past Rupert, but it's not something you can say is a regression, because ultimately you can see how she becomes obsessed the moment she finds out Rupert's gifted back his part of AFC Richmond last season so he can buy West Ham. So Rebecca's going through her own stuff, but today she's got a lunch date with Keely, and she's excited to see Keely and just get her mind off of everything. But when she's talking to Ted and everyone else, the comparison for her just keeps going to West Ham, and that Rupert wants us to be embarrassed, and they want us to fail, or he wants us to fail this, and Ted has to keep saying they, because it's not just Rupert. There is Nate involved, and there's West Ham as a team, and all of that. So you can see why she's focused on the Rupert of it all, because that is her ex-husband. There's still bad blood there. He did cheat on her. And it's just it's so funny and weird, but it feels right. Nothing about this episode feels out of place or wrong at all. It was a fun little episode, because ultimately we have Ted end up taking his team to the sewer of all places. The sewer, for a team building exercise, and just ultimately say, hey, this is a perfect example of everything that you're hearing. You see this? You see all that crap just floating in the water? That's what everyone's saying about you, and you just got to let it go and go downstream. Don't let it bug you. Just let it ride, ignore it, and keep being us. Let's be the underdog, and let's shock everyone. Ignore what the people are saying and just do our AFC Greyhound thing. And that kind of is the biggest thing about this episode, because from there, that little trip causes Nate to make some jokes at the press conference because a couple construction workers took a picture of the team as they were heading down into the sewer, and of course it starts blowing up while Nate is in his presser, so they have to ask him about it. And Nate makes the joke of, well, they have to go into the sewer because they have such a crappy head coach. I'm sorry I'm saying crappy. YouTube changed its guidelines, so I'm trying to make sure this doesn't end up getting demonetized down the line if we do end up with monetization. But it, now that that's starting to go around, you cut back. Rebecca's now seeing it because she's like, where's my team? They should be at training. Where's Ted? And you see the team bus and the team in the sewer, and she is not happy. Not at all. But she has her lunch with Keeley. And Keeley's like, hey, you just have to let Ted be Ted. Because if you don't, you're not going to have what AFC Richmond can really be, because he's a different person. He's on a different level. And what makes him so successful is how charming, sweet, and authentic he is as a person. So later on, when Ted gets back and is scolded by Rebecca and is told to have a presser and fire back, Ted is Ted, and he can't really fire back. He rather make jokes about himself and how bad of a coach and how big of a fish out of water he is than take shots at his former friend and former colleague in Nate, and how Nate took shots at him, essentially taking the route of the bigger man. It's refreshing because that is what Ted Lasso has always been. The character, at least, that's who that character has been to me. We got to delve a bit more into his psyche just this past season in season 2, but seeing how he's still ultimately that guy is awesome, because that shows you he even though he's grown, he's not gonna change who he is. So moving on, we're towards the end of that day's events. Nate's gifted a car by Rupert, and Ted is walking with Beard and trying to figure out how to go about things with Henry going forward, because it's clear he is a man who realizes he is thousands of miles away from his son, and is trying to figure out how he can be more involved in his life. It's hard, especially since he is a divorced father. And ultimately, he ends the night on a FaceTime with Henry, and they're talking, and Henry notices that Nate isn't with the rest of the group in the AFC Richmond Lego pitch. And he says something to Ted that this kid, just the little nuggets that he dropped throughout the show, whether this episode, whether it was the one-liners to open it up about his country's political climate, or Ted mentioning that the kid was wise enough to ask to take the tour of the London sewers after accidentally watching it on the flight over, or in this case where he says, just why isn't Nate with the rest of the team? Just because you guys aren't teammates anymore doesn't mean you can't be friends. And that just like warms your heart and breaks it at the same time, because you can see how much of Ted is rubbed off on this kid. He is, without a doubt, when you hear something like that, he is his father's son. And Ted just has a smile on his face. He's like, yeah, you're right. He moves Nate back. And you can clearly see that this season is going to be about rebuilding that relationship, whether or not Nate wants to. And that's probably going to cause some friction between him and Rupert and Ted and Rebecca and possibly everyone, because Nate just is going full flamethrower to everything that involves AFC Richmond. But overall, I really dug this first episode. I'm very curious to see what else we get going forward, because I think this season is going to be big. They're saying it's the last season, but they're also saying it might not be. You have Brent Goldstein teasing how the show could be going forward if they did go past season 3. And I'm really digging the show, but This is just the first episode. I will be doing more in-depth non-live episodes due to the fact that I don't want to talk alone. Like, this setup is cool and all, but I'd rather be talking to my friends and people who do love this show. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. This is a quick little 15-minute spoiler or recap of Ted Lasso season 3, episode 1, and the first episodes of Biscuits and Believing. And I can't wait to spend some more time with you all. So without further ado, remember to like, subscribe, and follow we do over here at WAT Reel Entertainment. And until then, I'm Matt, and this was the first episode of Biscuits and Believing. We'll see you next time, people. Remember, we're Richmond till we die. Go AFC Richmond. Long live Ted Lasso.